The top business stories live from the Sky Newsroom. US inflation unexpectedly rises to 3%, adding to concerns that the Federal Reserve will delay further interest rate cuts. Appalled and disgusted, the boss of Abercrombie and Fitch gives her reaction to sex trafficking allegations against her predecessor. We'll assess how the claims have affected the brand. Plus, as Heathrow announces a multi-billion-pound expansion, with the chief executive saying a third runway could be in action by 2035, we'll be examining what it means for passengers. Very good afternoon and welcome to Business Live on this Wednesday afternoon with me, Darren McCaffrey. Just to say that we're also keeping an eye on a speech or a press conference we're due to have from the UK Defence Secretary John Healey in the next couple of minutes, obviously in Brussels, and we will bring you that press conference as soon as it starts. First, though, the new chief executive of Abercrombie and Fitch has told Sky News that she's appalled and disgusted by the allegations of sex trafficking made against her predecessor, Mike Jeffries. Fran Horowitz, who's led the US-based company since the departure of Mr. Jeffries, said that the American fashion brand has transformed and reinvented itself since the scandal came to light.
Yes, so I have been here for a decade, and the company is a completely different place than it was a decade ago. I'm very, very proud of the company that we have built today. The values that we represent, the associates, could not be prouder of where we are today.
Have you taken measures? I mean, we're not going to get into, obviously, the allegations around Mike Jeffries, but as the company, have you taken measures to protect employees and people associated with the company?
Listen, we are appalled and disgusted at the allegations. What we do at Abercrombie is continue to do what we set out to do, which is set the new values for the company, and keep our associates focused on that.
In saying that, I mean, again, coming back to my experience of your store, I remember, there were scantily clad, particularly young men there. Do you think that was the wrong thing to do? That's something that you guys wouldn't do today?
Yeah, I think today we're focused on who the consumer is today, what's important to them, what their priorities are. That's how we continue to keep the company moving forward, staying very close to the consumer, spending a lot of time with them. The teams spend a lot of time in their lifestyle, making sure that they understand what's important to them, which is their long weekends, time with their friends, different experiences that they're having. And that's what we represent, and certainly in all of our marketing today. No,
and I get that, Fran, and I don't want to hammer this, but let's be frank about this. There are very serious allegations. It is associated with the company. I get that you argue things have changed, but frankly, for a lot of consumers, the brand is tarnished, and that is difficult for you, surely.
Well, again, the allegations, the things that happened in the company were over a decade ago, and we have spent a decade really transforming and reinventing this company, and that's what the team is focused on today. Where we are today, what matters to our consumer, putting out great quality product for them, and truly understanding what matters to them.
Speak to Lauren Beeching, founder of crisis management agency Honest London. Lauren, very good afternoon to you. I suppose the first question is, brands do get damaged, don't they, by a whole series of different allegations or things that may well have happened in the past. And it clearly is, and you could probably see in that interview, she didn't really want to answer those questions, did she? But you kind of do have to front up sometimes.
You do, but there's only so much you can say. And I mean, I think she handled it very well. I mean, what she has achieved with Abercrombie is incredible. I mean, the way she's handling it is fantastic. I mean, a scandal doesn't break a brand, but mishandling it certainly does. And she did handle, and what she's done with Abercrombie for the last decade is incredible. And when it comes to Abercrombie, they already had such a tough reputation, being exclusive, only catering to a certain type of customer. People I remember only hired for being attractive employees. They didn't make clothes for larger sizes. So when like these scandals come out about Abercrombie, like about the former CEO, it wasn't just shocking, but it confirmed what people already thought about the brand, which makes the backlash even worse. And it felt like almost proof that Abercrombie had always been a bit problematic. So I can understand why she's being very careful and not trying to answer questions about something that, quite frankly, isn't her problem anymore. She's dealt with the brand.
Well, that's the question, isn't it? At what stage isn't it a problem? I mean, we look at what's happened with Harrods, completely new management. Mohammed Al-Fayed is now dead, but it's, the stories are associated with Harrods, the brand, if you like. And that is tough, isn't it?
It is tough because that's the tagline for press, because it makes it a bigger story. So unfortunately, Abercrombie is still going to be dragged into it. He used Abercrombie at the time for the accusations. It's a tough one, and it's one of those negative situations that unfortunately she's going to have to deal with, Fran, even though she's, as a business person, has done a fantastic job recreating that brand and making Abercrombie sort of thrive again, to be honest.
And Lauren, just more generally, when brands or companies run into these difficulties, what do you give advice? What do you think the best advice is? Is there a general set rule that you kind of should do this, or does it really depend on what the trouble is, if you like?
It's a tough one because every case with my clients is so unique. Like I always say, a crisis doesn't have to define a brand. It's how a brand uses that moment to redefine itself that really matters. But yeah, scandals don't impact all brands equally. Like context is absolutely everything. Like with Abercrombie, for example, they had a bad sort of reputation as it was already, so that makes it a lot tougher. But the scale of damage really depends on the brand's sort of core identity. If a scandal contradicts the brand's values, recovery is much harder. So for example, with a sustainability focused brand caught polluting they were caught polluting, they're going to face far larger backlash than a fast fashion brand, for example, because it violates their fundamental promise. And I think the key thing with my clients, unfortunately, they wish that it would happen, but not everyone will forget. And you have to kind of focus on those who are willing to forget and listen and be willing to forgive, essentially, or simply find a brand new audience. But yeah, each case is unique. And sadly for me, it's not like a one-size-fits-all recovery strategy, because that'd make my life a lot easier.
Indeed. OK. Lauren, really appreciate your insight this afternoon. Lauren Beeching there from Honest London. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Heathrow's boss has told me that he hopes a third runway can be built by 2035. Thomas Wolby was speaking as the UK's biggest airport announced a multi-billion-pound investment to improve existing terminals and boost passenger numbers.
Our ambition, together with government, is to deliver a permit by the end of this Parliament and to deliver the runway by the end of the next Parliament. That is ambitious, and it does require cooperation from government. And we are prepared to deliver just that.
So you're suggesting that planes could be taking off by 2034?
2035, something like that, yes.
OK. What would you say to critics of the runway on environmental grounds? This is a country that's committed to net zero. You know what? A third runway...
And we are also...
Well, but a third runway is against that, isn't it? It's not environmentally friendly. Let's be honest about it.
I think that we need to balance economic growth and prosperity with climate conditions. And there are climate conditions. The third runway will not be delivered unless it lives up to the agreement made with the government under the ANPS. In itself, of course, there will be planes flying, but we also have to realize that economic growth cannot be blocked. We need to deliver both for the economy and for the climate.
Let's speak to Graham Buck from the Travel Agents Trade Association, that is ABTA. Very good afternoon to you, Graham. I mean, just first of all, what difference would a third runway actually make, not to business or to growth or to UK PLC, but to people like you and me, i.e. the passengers?
Well, I think we need to look at this from the point of view of choice and comfort and convenience for passengers as well. So at the moment, Heathrow is operating at near maximum capacity. If there isn't some form of expansion, then it will start losing ground to other international airports. And you may say, well, why does that matter for the consumer? Well, it's partly because the flight routes that you have with Heathrow and the new ones that will no doubt be coming in over the next few years if you have a full at capacity operation, it's unlikely they're going to be going there. So in terms of the choice that UK travellers have, it's essential that we have healthy, thriving airports, not just Heathrow, but all of them throughout the UK, to help people have that smooth passenger experience that they'd like.
But Graham, the thing about airports like Heathrow and the announcement today is about building bigger terminals, isn't it? Essentially an additional kind of terminal to T5 and to Terminal 2, is that they just become unwieldy, if you know what I mean. They become so big that actually you spend a lot of time just transversing the airports.
Yeah, well, let's look at what's being proposed. We conduct research at ABTA on a regular basis, looking at what factors help consumers to travel with confidence. There's about a third of people say that it's essential for them to either know that they can travel to and from the airport in a smooth way, or that they have a smooth experience throughout the airport and getting there. Now, for some people, they're not familiar with travelling on planes. They don't do it all the time. It might be a once-in-a-year thing or less, and they want to know they can get around, what have you. So larger terminals actually should be beneficial from that point of view, not quite so crowded, and a nice, clear experience for people as well as they go through to begin their holiday or begin that business trip.
In saying that, I mean, I just know from personal experience, I've used Istanbul's new airport a few times, and you land, but because it's so big, it takes about 30 minutes to actually get to the terminal because they've got so many runways there. Just in terms of where Heathrow is, you know, the argument, of course, is that it's a global hub and that's what the UK needs. But the whole point of a hub, to a degree, is that people land here, get off a plane and onto another plane. They don't actually spend any time in the UK itself.
Yeah, well, you know, this is about Heathrow setting out what it believes is needed to help manage forecast growth in passengers and to help make that experience as smooth as possible. And that's whether you are in transit from one flight to another or whether you're using it as a departure or arrival. You know, I'm sure they're quite well thought through. I haven't been involved in the discussions on them, but, you know, it's in everyone's interest that there's a smooth route through the airport for all people who are travelling. And size doesn't have to mean complicated at all, I don't think.
OK, Graham, really appreciate your time this afternoon. Graham there from ABTA. Thank you on Heathrow's expansion. Let's bring you up to date with some of the rest of the business stories now. And a crossbench group of MPs has warned that the annual cost of tax evasion is likely to be far higher than estimated. The Public Accounts Committee said that loopholes in the current system mean processes are open to abuse. HMRC says that tax dodging costs the public around £5.5 billion a year and insists it's working to close it further. The Russian ruble has surged by almost 3% against the US dollar after a deal between Moscow and Washington brought home an American school teacher who was detained in Russia. The ruble is up around 15% against the dollar so far this year, fuelled by the potential easing of Russia-US tensions, with President Trump's pledge to end the war in Ukraine being a major factor. One of the UK's biggest providers of motor finance has warned that it expects to set aside £165 million in the first half of its financial year to cover possible legal and compensation cases following the Car Loans Commission scandal. Close Brothers says that the estimate follows a thorough assessment of developments in the SAGE, but warns that there's still uncertainty over the outcome of appeals and an ongoing review by the Financial Conduct Authority. And you can get more on that, and indeed the rest of the money news. All you need to do, scan the QR code on your screen now, gain access to the Sky News app or indeed the Sky News website. You're watching Business Live here on Sky News. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we're going to be looking at how the markets are doing on this Wednesday afternoon, up just over 0.33% there for the FTSE 100. Plus, we'll be live in Brussels. We're expecting to hear from the UK Defence Secretary, John Healey, at that defence conference. All coming up in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned.